Hey everyone, Clio here, and today we are diving into my June TBR. So in the month of June it's time for the Whatever You Want-a-thon, which is a readathon hosted by Maddie from Book Browsing Blog. It is a team-based readathon, but what I really love about it is that it's a very free-form readathon. Basically, you determine for yourself what your goal is, how many books are you committing, and when you reach that goal you get like a nice point boost for your team. And you can still go beyond that goal and earn points for your team, but in any case the idea of like setting your own goal is perfect for me, because a lot of times I feel like there are so many prompts, and because I don't read as many books in a month as some big booktubers do, I sometimes feel like deflated even started, because I know like I won't be able to complete all of the goals. I won't be able to read so many books in order for me to fill all of those prompts. Aside from that, you can also read whichever genre you want. It will definitely fit in, and there are no certain prompts that you need to fulfill. Prompts can give you extra points, but basically you can read whatever, and anything you read will earn you points for your team. Now, I have committed to reading 10. Had to think about that one, because like I think last year I always read 10 books a month, but this year this has not been the case. However, my 5-book TBR that I have scheduled for June is mild on the page count, so I've decided that I will be able to fit 5 more books in, and so I'm committing to 10 books. 10 books is what I'm going to be reading, but this particular TBR video will only contain 5 of them. So I'll be going through the 5 books that I've predetermined for myself for the month of June. I do have an idea of what the 5 other books are that I want to fit into my month. Basically, I have an idea for 4, and then the 5th one is just a random one that I put on there. But in principle, those can all still change. So let's start where I usually start, which is the books that I predetermined at the beginning of the year, basically already. The books that I've been telling myself from the get-go at the start of the year that I will be reading. So Cosmere is one big aspect of that, so I am reading for the first time a lot of the Cosmere, and we're finally getting to that reading for the first time part. Up until this point in the year, I've basically been rereading stuff, been rereading Elantris, Warbreaker, Mistborn Era 1, and now it's time to make a change. And it's a change in 2 ways, because it's not just something that I haven't read before, it's also something that is short, which is a nice change. So I'll be reading a novella, so I'll be reading part of the Arcanum Unbounded. I will be reading Mistborn Secret History. Now, I'll already be telling you guys, I will not be saying anything about Mistborn Secret History, and if you guys have not read Mistborn Era 1, do not look up the synopsis for Mistborn Secret History. But so yeah, I'll be continuing on my first consumption of new Cosmere stuff since Rhythm of War, which isn't all that long ago, but in any case, I'm dying to dive into it and then to be able to continue on with Mistborn Era 2 afterwards. I will potentially also be trying to fit in the other Mistborn novella, which is The Lost Metal, I think the name is, which is basically a prequel to Mistborn Era 1. You don't need to read it before Mistborn Era 1, but so I haven't. But I think you can read it before Mistborn Era 1, and so I might as well try and fit it in, because I ideally want to get this entire novella collection done by the end of the year, so this is the perfect time in which to do The Lost Metal as well. The second book that I predetermined for myself was Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. So this is the second book in the Farseer trilogy. Book 1, Assassin's Apprentice, was on my May TBR, and so we'll be continuing on with Royal Assassin in June, and then Assassin's Quest in July. In the Farseer trilogy, we are following Fitz, who is the bastard son of the heir to the crown. And as a bastard son to royalty, he is in the perfect situation to train to become an assassin. Due to his blood ties, it is assumed that he will have sort of like unconditional loyalty almost to his family, but his status as a bastard has another advantage, and that is that he is connected to royalty, but he doesn't have the esteem of royalty, and so he can move about more freely and will have less people observing him at all times, will have less people paying as close attention to him as they might do to proper royalty. So I am enjoying my reread of Assassin's Apprentice. I haven't done yet. I will hopefully finish tonight, maybe tomorrow, but in any case it will be done by the end of the month. I am enjoying it a lot, but I do remember that there were certain aspects about Assassin's Apprentice that I didn't fully love. I didn't fully love the ending, for example, and as a result I didn't feel that big push into Royal Assassin, for example. I didn't prioritize continuing with the series, but I do definitely want to do that. Now, also, I've seen a lot of people who had that sort of same experience with Assassin's Apprentice, who then really loved Royal Assassin and its sequel. So I'm really looking forward to diving into this one and seeing what my experience is going to be with this one. Third and final fantasy on there is the Jasmine Drone by Tasha Shuri. So this is a book that is coming out in the month of June, so I don't physically own it. It's Indian-inspired fantasy and it has a female-female relationship in it. I don't really fully remember a lot about it because I looked up the premise like in January or something, or even December, when I was trying to see what was going to be coming out within this year. And that was definitely high up on my ranking of books that I wanted to get to. I think it has to do with like a princess in exile or something who's trying to reclaim power from her brother who was taken the throne or something like that. But yeah, it has a female-female relationship in it. Indian-inspired fantasy, always looking for more fantasy that is set in not our Western world, and especially not in like medieval Europe or something like that. So I'm very much looking forward to a very different fantasy setting than what I'm usually exposed to. And we always love seeing more queer reps, so I'm really looking forward to diving into this one. Moving on past fantasy, I have two more books that are on my TBR, my official TBR. First up is Eleanor, Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. Basically, I think this falls into the sort of like woman struggling in her, like, I don't know, mid-20s, mid-30s, trying to get her life, her career, her love life in order. That's kind of what I think this book is. I've heard really good things about it, but I think I also heard some mixed things. And so I've been kind of worried about starting it, I guess. I've kind of been hesitant about starting it. I initially was very excited about this one because it was kind of everywhere. I was seeing it everywhere. People who I knew were reading it, for example, and so I was excited about it. But along the line, I've kind of lost that excitement with it, so I put it on my 12 books for 2021 list. And so yeah, a quick glance at the back of this book indicates that she's basically a woman stuck in a rut who always does the exact same thing, who has her life kind of planned down to the minute, but who kind of feels like something is missing from all of that. So yeah, we'll have to see what I think about this one. I'm hoping to love it, of course, hoping to fall in line with those many people who absolutely loved this read. And then the final book that I have on my TBR is In the Miso Soup by Ryu Murakami. Now this is a book that is on my TBR because it is the Patreon book club pick for Kate Fields' channel, and so she has a sort of like translated book section to her Patreon, and that is what I'm joining. And so for that book club we will be reading In the Miso Soup. Ryu Murakami is basically also a pretty well-known author, pretty well-known Japanese author. He writes more in the sort of like thriller horror genre, I think, and I think In the Miso Soup is definitely sort of like thriller type. So basically the story is about this, I think it's an American guy who visits Tokyo, and his cab driver basically introduces him to like the dark, gritty underworld of Tokyo, or nightlife of Tokyo. That's basically everything I know about this book. I don't necessarily love thriller horror all that much. In terms of horror, I've definitely not read much, but I also don't like horror movies, for example. In terms of thriller, it kind of depends. I like sci-fi thrillers, for example, but I don't like anything that has to do with detective, for example. I really don't care who is the murderer, for example, but I think I might like suspense, for example, so we'll have to see. It's something that is outside of my comfort zone. It's a genre that I don't often read, but I do definitely want to try out Japanese thriller, Japanese horror at some point, because it is also a aspect to Japanese literature that is very well known. You know, a lot of horror movies are inspired by Japanese books, for example, so I do also want to be sampling that part of Japanese literature at some point, and so we'll have to see where exactly In the Miso Soup fits on that scale. But in any case, it's kind of outside of my comfort zone, but it is an important Japanese writer, so I do want to at least give his writing a go. So that is it for my official TBR. My official TBR together is under 200 pages, which is a nice change from most months so far this year, because a lot of months this year I've had like 3 thick fantasy books on there, and so it's been a lot more difficult to get around to finishing my entire TBR. I will also say that from my main TBR I will also most likely be carrying over a particular book that I am planning to start still in the last weekend of the year. in the last weekend of the month, but I do not anticipate being able to finish it, so it will be carrying over into the month of June, for example, but you'll find out about that in probably my mid-month June wrap-up, because I'll probably then be finishing it in the beginning of June. But so yeah, that was it for my TBR. Definitely let me know if any of these books are on your radar, or if you've read them, what your thoughts were on them, and I would love to talk to you guys about them in the comments. But so hope you guys enjoyed this video, and see you guys for a future one. Bye!